Imagine two people waking up at 6 a.m. The first hits snooze 3 times, scrolls through a chaotic news feed for 20 minutes, and eventually stumbles into the kitchen, already feeling behind. The second person moves through a series of almost invisible automatic actions: water, a specific stretch, a brief period of focused thought, and by 8 a.m., they've already achieved more than most people do in a week. We often call this willpower or discipline, but neuroscience suggests something much more profound is happening. There is a specific psychological architecture behind why 1% of people seem to win at life, while everyone else is just trying to survive the day. It isn't about being a superhuman. It's about understanding how to hack the brain's deep-seated craving for the predictable. Let's start with the obvious question. Why is it so hard to stick to a good routine? For decades, we've been told that success is about wanting it more. But your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for complex decision-making and self-reflection, actually has a very limited battery life. Every time you have to decide what to wear, what to eat, or which task to start first, you are draining that battery. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. The 1% have figured out that the secret to winning isn't having more willpower. It's about removing the need for willpower altogether by turning high-stakes decisions into low-energy habits. But here's where it gets interesting. When researchers look at the brains of high achievers, they find a fascinating relationship with the dopamine system. Most people are chasing cheap dopamine, the instant hit you get from a notification or a sugary snack. However, people who master their routines have a more sensitive dopamine system, similar to those who prefer solitude. They reach optimal stimulation through the process itself, rather than just the reward. Think of it like a spice tolerance. While most people need a massive external win to feel successful, the 1% get a steady, sustainable hum of satisfaction from the simple act of completing their morning ritual. This brings us to a concept known as the high contingency environment. Generation X grew up in a world where actions had immediate, unbuffered consequences. If you didn't have your key, you were locked out. If you didn't do your homework, there was no digital portal to beg for an extension. This shaped a generation that instinctively understands the link between cause and effect. The winners in today's world recreate this environment for themselves. They build routines where the rules hit hard and fast, creating a structure where they can predict consequences in real time. They aren't waiting for a boss or a parent to tell them what to do. They've built an internal latchkey psychology that thrives on self-reliance. But here's where things get messy. Society often views these highly routined individuals as boring or rigid, much like the way we misunderstand people who genuinely enjoy being alone. We see a person who eats the same meal every day or works out at the exact same time, and we think they're missing out on the spice of life. In reality, they are protecting their mental energy. By automating the mundane, they are freeing up their prefrontal cortex for deep thinking and creative problem solving. Their brains are throwing a party of introspection, while everyone else is exhausted from deciding what to have for lunch. There is also a tribal element to this success. Humans are naturally tribal creatures, and sports fans often find their identity tied to the victories of others, a phenomenon called basking in reflected glory. But the 1% tend to have lower tribal instincts. They don't look for external victories or millionaire athletes to feel complete. Instead, They invest that emotional energy into direct engagement with their own lives. They prefer a reciprocal relationship with their effort, where their care directly impacts the outcome. They aren't spectators. They are participants in their own narrative. Cognitive psychologists describe the way these people learn as deeper encoding. Just as older generations had to put in physical effort to find information in a library, the 1% treat their routines as high-effort, high-value structures. They understand that when something requires effort to maintain, it becomes more permanently integrated into who they are. They've developed a mechanical intuition for their own lives, believing that with enough patience and the right systems, they can master any challenge. For those born in the Xennial microgeneration, this balance feels almost natural. They remember the analog world of waiting and patience, but they've adapted to the digital world of speed. This technological bilingualism allows them to use modern tools to optimize their routines without becoming slaves to the constant ping of notifications. They know what it's like to be unreachable, which is a superpower when you're trying to do deep, focused work. They've lived through transitions, which taught them the most valuable lesson of all: how to adapt without losing your core self in the process. So, why does the other 99% struggle? It often comes down to optimal arousal theory. Most people are overstimulated by the noise and chaos of a world that demands their constant attention. They are running from connection to connection, feeling depleted and resentful. The winners, however, have embraced a low-stimulation preference. They find joy in the small rituals, the specific way the light hits their desk at 7 a.m., or the consistent taste of their morning coffee. They've discovered that being alone with your thoughts isn't a social failure. It's often a sign of high social and emotional intelligence. If you've ever felt like your need for routine was weird, or that you were missing out because you'd rather stay in and work on your craft than go to a party, here is your permission slip. You aren't broken. Your brain is literally wired to find restoration and power in that structure. You are bringing your whole self to the table because you've spent time at your own table first. In an age of constant connectivity and immediate responses, the ability to stick to a quiet, repetitive, and disciplined routine is the most countercultural thing you can do. The difference between winning and struggling isn't found in a grand one-time gesture. It's found in the Hitori, the celebrated alone time where you exist with yourself and your goals. It's the understanding that the quality of your alone time directly impacts the quality of your social time and your professional output. You are not a broken Lego piece looking for a match. You are a whole set already, and your routine is the blueprint that keeps that set together. If this video hit home for you and helped you understand why your daily habits are your greatest asset, type the word anchor in the comments. It represents that steady foundation that keeps you grounded while the rest of the world is tossed around by the waves of distraction.